right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast. And as usual, I'm your favorite Virgo host, Shakita Johnson. And of course, y'all, we are joined by another lovely guest. I am so excited to have this conversation and introduce this person to you. Today, we are joined by the Miss Erin Darden. How are you doing today, sis?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Can't complain, can't complain. So, before we get into our conversation today, we have to start with our lovely mental health check. So,
Mhm.
for anyone that is joining us for the first time, we take time to rate our mental health on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being that we are in a good space and we're feeling good. 1 means we're not in the best space, have some room for pouring, but we are managing. So, Miss Erin, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 5?
On a scale to 1 to 5, I would have to say 3.5.
Okay. All right. Well, so
Mm-hmm.
we have some extra space for pouring. So we just
Mm-hmm.
need some extra support.
Mm-hmm. Everything will be okay a week from today when I'm
Oh,
going.
I bet.
Mm-hmm.
I bet. But nonetheless, thank you for taking the time to even share that because, some people can be a little resistant
Mm-hmm.
when talking about mental health and how you're feeling. So I appreciate you for that.
Absolutely.
My mental health today on a scale of 1 to 5, I am going to go with a 5.
That's
Okay.
awesome. I love that for you.
Listen, I celebrate the 1 through 5s, whatever it is, I celebrate it. I reflect on it. It's been a long time coming. So I'm in a good space and I like to keep that energy going.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Um, but I can't say that my day started off at a 5, but it's at a
Mm-hmm.
5 now. So we're just
And
gonna
that's
go
what's
with it.
important.
Yes, yes, most definitely. But I do these mental health checks as a way to hold myself accountable, to check in with myself, and also to encourage others to take the time out of your busy schedules to take time, 5, 10 minutes to yourself to just see how you are doing, check in with your inner dialogue. And if something does not seem right, try to figure out what it is and maybe find someone to talk to or some other type of modality, meditation, listen to calming music, just something to get you in a better space. But most definitely, don't feel like you have to navigate those paths and those journeys alone because we
Mm-hmm.
are all in this together.
Absolutely.
All right. So, again, thank you for joining in on the mental health check. And let's get into this conversation because I feel like you are about to get in my tail once again. So today, y'all, we are going to be talking about why it is important to cultivate a healthy relationship with yourself and how cultivating a healthy relationship with yourself transform into you having a positive and healthy relationship with others. Because Miss Erin is emotional intelligence and a relationship coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I love everything about emotional intelligence, all of those things, just a person's awareness in general. So before we dive into that discussion, can you just share with us how you got interested and equipped with wanting to study emotional intelligence and just coach people?
Absolutely. So I don't know that I would say that it was my goal. It was kind of it helped me with some relationships, especially at work, which is where you usually see it show up. I had a supervisor that I felt like was condescending for the most part. I felt like I had to walk on eggshells around him. Everything I did, nothing was right. I felt like he didn't understand me. Like, so that relationship caused me a whole lot of grief at work, amongst other things. And so I just so happened to be at the same time in my coaching program, and we were learning about emotional intelligence. And I said, oh, well, let's see if it'll work over here. And it did, right? And I'll share more about that later. But then I said, well, if it worked over here in a work relationship, will it work in my personal relationships? And so what I had to do was, I thought I was just using it for, right, my romantic relationship. And what happened is, right, it transformed me more than I was expecting it. Right? At
Mhm.
that moment in my life, I feel like my life fell apart. Right? I think a lot of us have an idea of what our life is going to look like. So for me, I expect it to be married by 30, and I had already given God an extra 5 years because 25 was the original goal, right? So I gave him an extra 5 years. So I thought I was going to be married by 30, right? Married to my best friend with kids, a happy, high paid attorney, right? Just living my life. And then 7 months before my 30th birthday, everything fell apart, right? So I told you at work, right, that the supervisor was condescending, but I also wasn't making enough money to live in DC. At the time, the guy that I was dating said, I don't want this anymore. And you couldn't tell me that he wasn't my husband, right? And so I'm in a new city, right? I had just moved to DC from North Carolina. And I felt like every area of my life was in shambles. I cried every day I had to go to work. And it just was really bad, depressed, struggled with mental health a lot. Then I decided, like, this is not the life for me, right? This is not the life that God would have for me, right? I believe in God. I'm very spiritual, right? This ain't it. He would not put me on this earth to have this life, right? A life where I'm unhappy. I'm crying every day I have to go to work, right? I'm lonely. I'm by myself, like in a new area. Like, this is just not it. And so I decided that since I have to rebuild every area of my life, because literally every single area, I didn't even have a church home at the time, like every area of my life was in shambles. I said, well, if I have to rebuild it, I'm going to rebuild a life that I want. And what that took was I had to ask myself a lot of questions. And at first I didn't know the answers, right? And so the first component of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. And so I had to ask very difficult questions. I had to get to know who Erin is, who Erin really is, right? I had to unlearn some things that not necessarily were bad, but things that I might have learned growing up or from my parents, or what social media and society says you should do and all of that. So there's a lot of things that I had to unlearn. There are things that I had to decipher. Is this really me? Is it not? And so I had to get to know Erin, who Erin is, what I like, what's healthy for me, and what is not. And I feel like ever since I have done that, I have been thriving, right? I have figured out my purpose. I have been able to have healthy relationships, right? I've learned how to communicate and stand up for myself, like, and we can get into like specifics later, but emotional intelligence has really helped me a lot. And so as I was coming through my coaching program, like, so what is it that I want to do? Right. And they always tell you, like, you are your target audience. And so I'm like, well, what is it that I need help with? And so it really makes me sad when people settle in relationships. Right. Because I feel like relationships are optional. And so anybody that should be in your life should be a positive addition. But yet people would come to me and I would talk to people and they would say, oh, he did this or she did this. But I'm still going to stay. And that is the part that got me curious. You are unhappy in this situation, but you're staying. And that is the part I wanted to figure out, that why. Why do people stay in situations when they know they are no longer being served, right? That is not a safe space for them. Why do they stay? And I've learned that the only way to kind of grow past that, and right, the reason that people stay is for a number of things, but building a healthy relationship with yourself is the answer as to why a lot of these things happen, right? And so the things that you accept in a relationship, the way that you show up or you don't show up in a relationship, the boundaries or your lack thereof, right? All of this starts with your relationship to yourself. And so that is what I got very interested in, right? I don't care. People will come and say, oh, my boyfriend, my husband did X, Y, and Z, but I want to talk about you, right? He cheated 5 times. Well, let's talk about why you stayed, right? And people are like, well, I feel like you're picking on me, and I'm not. So here's the thing, right? You have accountability. I know it's not good. It's not right. But you have to understand how you got here so that you don't end up here again. Right. And so when I'm asking questions and ignoring what the other person, you're the only person that you can control. And so by being self-aware and understanding and taking your accountability, right, it really allows you, I feel like, to thrive in your relationships. But it has to start with you. I feel like that was a real long answer to your question. I hope I answered.
No. Girl, no, you are perfectly fine. I loved it. I loved your explanation of that. And I think, like you said, we all go to the get to the point. We have been in situations, whether it's breakups or separations, and we are pointing the fingers at everybody else, because that was
Mm-hmm.
definitely me in my last
Yep.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I was quickly redirected to introduction of accountability, you
Absolutely.
know, like, so with you stepping into that whole new light of doing coaching and focusing on emotional intelligence, did you have to really mirror yourself at that point, because you had just experienced your own separation from your partner?
Did I have to mirror myself?
So like look yourself in the mirror and take accountability for.
So yes, but I did it long before
Okay.
I started the business. So the business was a result of me doing the work. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew pretty early on that I wasn't going to be an attorney forever.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know what I was going to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as I always say, God, therapy, and self care is what kind of pulled me out of this. I was depressed for years, right? God, therapy, and self care is what pulled me out. And so, through therapy and learning myself, right, that is how I realized that being an attorney that's not why I was created. And that's how, right, the coaching came about. It's a gift, it's a skill. I had no idea until I took the time to really get to know me, like I said. And I realized that this is a gift that I have. I never look, people used to come to me all the time for advice, and I never
Mm-hmm.
understood why, because I never tell people what to do. Right. I've always just asked questions because you're not going to do what I say and then mess up and then you want to blame me. Like, no,
Right.
we're not
Well,
doing
you
that.
told me to go ahead and leave him, girl.
Exactly. And so we're not doing it, right? And you don't have to live by my standards, right? You gotta, even if I know that you are about to make make a not good decision, you gotta bump your head. You have to learn it. I did the work ahead of time. And
Mm-hmm.
so figuring out my purpose, right? That's another benefit of being emotionally intelligent and being self-aware. You kind of understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and you align with your strengths. And so that's how coaching came about. So the finding out my purpose in coaching was the result of me doing the work.
Okay. Now you went from being an attorney, which is major because it takes a lot of school and skill and everything. I studied criminal justice and law.
Mhm.
So when I graduated from high school, I got a diploma and a law certificate.
Mhm.
And I went to college. Well, I thought I was gonna be a nurse at one point. That was like, because I seen all the science and math. And
Mhm.
my grandmother was like, do something that is like really personal to you. Because whatever
Mhm.
you do, it's gonna be meaningful. And I had a thing against sexual predators from my own personal trauma. I was like, you know what? I'm going to law school. So let me go study criminal justice.
Mhm.
Got my degree, but I never explored anything after law once I ran into psychology. I just fell in love with psych and
Mhm.
mental health. So it wasn't that big of a transition. But
Mhm.
for you to go from being an actual sworn in attorney
Mhm.
to coaching, how was that transition?
So it took a lot on my behalf. I don't know if you want me to get into that or
However much you want to, girl.
so how did I make the transition? I don't recommend that anybody do what I did. So I quit without a plan.
Okay. You took a step
So
out on faith. Okay.
so here's the thing. That's the good way to say it. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't, if I'm being honest, I don't know if I would say it like that, right? And again, my disclaimer is I don't recommend that anybody do what I did. I quit because I felt like it was me or the job.
Mm-hmm.
We both couldn't coexist anymore. I think I had maybe one coaching client at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that I can't stay here at this job anymore, right? The toll that it took on my mental health, it just, it wasn't going to work for me. I
Right.
felt like I called my office my cage. My mom would call me like, you at work? Yeah, I'm in my cage. Like, don't call. I felt like it was a cage, right? And you know when there is something else inside of you, when you know that you are supposed to be doing something else. Of course, I got scared. I had just bought a house. I'm like, God, I just bought a house. All right, let me just save 6 months. And I feel like he made it so unbearable that I just said, I quit.
Yeah.
I talked to my therapist. I talked to my psychiatrist. I took some time off from work, and then I sent in my letter of resignation. And I was like, girl, what you gonna do now? Like, I did not have a plan. And so I don't recommend that for anybody, right? Have a plan. Make sure that your business or whatever else you want to do can supplement your income, because that is also a thing, right? I walked away from my salary. And if I'm honest, I'm not there yet, right? I
Mm-hmm.
haven't made that money yet. And so this is something that I am truly passionate about. And so a lot went into me making this transition. I think even before that, like I said, I knew pretty early on that I didn't enjoy being an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to kind of figure out, what was for me. But when I started to realize that I didn't enjoy being an attorney, I felt bad.
Yeah.
Right? What did you say? Oh, being an attorney, like that's a big deal. And that's how a lot of people look at it. And then here I am, miserable.
Yeah.
Right? I straight out of law school, I got a job with the federal government. Like it's really difficult to do. And here I am, sad, miserable, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Right? So I felt guilty for that. Right? This is a profession that people admire. This is a profession I worked hard for. I get here and I felt ungrateful. Then I had to learn that it's okay to not like this, right? So that was part of what I had to um, learn for myself, that it's okay that I don't enjoy this. That does not mean I'm ungrateful.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it went from, okay, I'm not ungrateful. I just don't enjoy this. But then what is next? Like, how do I get the courage to pull the trigger? And like I said, I wish I could say that I voluntarily pulled the trigger, right? I wish I had that advice to give listeners, because that's a question people get, like, well, how you weren't scared? I'm still scared. I've been at this almost 5 years. I'm still scared,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I wish I had that advice that I can tell you how to pull the trigger, right? For me, I actually listened to my emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what it came down to. I was sitting at my kitchen table, right? Because this was during COVID, sitting at my kitchen table, working. It was about 9 o'clock at night, working same type of work that I do every day. I had been crying for days, right? And it just hit me. And I said, I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
I felt like, let me tell you what I felt like, sitting at that table doing work, crying, typing on the computer. I said, I feel like a child that got a beating and your mom said, go clean your room. Like that's what I felt like. And
Yeah.
I said, I'm grown. I don't have to do this. And that's when I made my mind up. And I said, you got to bet on you, Erin. Like if nobody else is going to, if you don't believe that you can do this, you know that you have a gift, you know that you have a skill, you know that God has told you what to do. You're being hard-headed and you're not listening. And he said, oh yeah, I got something for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like he made it so unbearable that, you know,
He will
then I
humble
feel
you
like
real quick.
I had to quit. Like it was me or the job. But what I have realized is that I actually use the same skill set,
Mm.
right? I use the same skill set. Let me back up a little bit. Um, Now, I don't want people to think that I jumped out of here and I was hit the ground running, ready. I was scared. I had imposter syndrome, right? I'm an attorney. If people gonna listen to me about relationships, I'm not married. Why would people listen to me, right? I had all of these thoughts, things that I've had to work through over the years. And so, back to what I was just saying, I actually still use the same skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being an attorney, I was in litigation. So I was in a courtroom, that whole thing, right? And all of that is about asking the right questions and getting information from the other side and making sure, you have everything that you need. And coaching is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the information from you. I need to make sure I'm asking the right questions so that you get the answers to the questions that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to ask the questions. You have the answers already, right? And so it's up to me to make sure that I'm asking the right questions so we can figure out, one, how did you get here? Two, what part did you play in this, right? Three, where do we go from here, right? And so it's up to me to ask those questions. People aren't, now some people are forthcoming, like, yeah, I did X, Y, and Z. Some people like to dress it up and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. And it's up to me, right, to ask the questions to really get to the truth of it.
Yeah.
And so, and I actually just made that realization like recently that I still use the same skill set, right? It's still about the questions. It's still about, knowing which questions to ask, knowing what information is important. So I think it's similar.
Yeah, and listening to your story, and thank you for sharing that and just being transparent
Mm-hmm.
about the fact stepping out on faith. I'm gonna still consider it stepping out on faith because you didn't
Okay.
have a plan, but overall you chose you. You put you first. You said it was
Mhm.
either you or the job. And that's a tough decision when you
Mhm.
need to like pay bills, you need your money, you did all this schooling, you thought you were going to be here, and then you have like this change of heart. You
Mhm.
chose you to pursue your passion.
Mhm.
So moving into emotional intelligence, right?
Mhm.
I think this is when you about to like really, hit me where it hurts.
Mhm.
Why is First of all, before the why, can you explain what emotional intelligence is for someone that's listening and may not know? And
Mhm.
then why it is important for us to have it within ourselves to have like healthy relationships with others.
Absolutely. So, like the textbook definition, right? Emotional intelligence, it is your ability to recognize and understand your emotions, but also the emotions of your partner or whoever else whatever relationship you're talking about, and making sure that you understand both how you feel, how your partner feels, and then kind of deciding where do we go from here. All right,
Mhm.
so there are four components of emotional intelligence. There's self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and then conflict resolution.
Mhm.
And so why it's important, um, it definitely plays a part in how you show up in relationships. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, I would say the big thing, right? The big topic that I usually go to, right? Conflict resolution, right? Effective communication, fighting in a relationship, right? You don't have to fight. The yelling, screaming, hollering is actually a sign of a lack of emotional intelligence.
Because you should be handling this differently.
Yes. So the reason that that is a sign of a lack of emotional intelligence, remember I said that the second component is self management.
Hmm.
And so when you are yelling, screaming, hollering, you are not managing your emotions.
Mm.
Right. And
Hmm.
some people don't even really know why they're mad. So we got to back up to the self awareness, right? You can't even
Right.
identify why you are feeling this way and exactly what you're feeling. Because people say, oh, I'm mad, when that's not really the what's going on.
The reason.
Right. There's
Mhm.
deeper issues there. And so, right, you are triggered, you have this emotion, and then you let the emotions consume you and you just lash out.
Mhm.
Right? Then there's right when you're in that state, you cannot be emotional and logical at the same time.
Ooh. Oh, okay. I can see that because logical meaning you can't make logical decisions.
Right? Your brain like actually does not allow it.
Okay.
Like the way that the brain, I'm not going to get too deep, but the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
that
yeah.
the brain is set up and how we like it processes information, you literally
Mm-hmm.
cannot be emotional and logical at the same time. Right? You know that because if you've ever been in a disagreement and you go back and think about what they said and be like, they probably was right. Because you were so consumed with your emotions that you couldn't hear
Yeah.
them. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Or if you like those moments where you feel like you blacked out, you don't really remember what happened. Again, right? A lack of emotional intelligence. But other ways that a lack thereof shows up in relationships, it shows up as a lack of confidence.
Mm.
It shows up as um, lack of boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
It shows up as you not being a safe space for the other person.
Now I'm talking. Okay.
Okay. And so there are others, but I think that those are like the bigger ones. And so when that happens, right, if you want to be more specific, if you don't know how to, if you're not emotionally intelligent, you don't know how to communicate effectively.
Mhm.
If you lack confidence and you lack boundaries, there is a good chance that you have not picked a good partner, or you keep ending up in relationships, situationships with people that are not good for you.
Mm.
Right.
That's a whole
And
word.
so all of this, right, these are the things that we can see, right? We keep running into the same guy over and over again. We fight and argue about the same stuff over and over again, right? These are the things that you can see, but people don't realize that a lot of this stems from a lack of emotional intelligence. And so if you are able to raise your emotional intelligence, because it's a skill that you can learn,
Mm-hmm.
if you are able to raise your emotional intelligence, right, you will be more confident. You can pick better partners. You can communicate. The arguing does not have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it makes your life a lot more peaceful.
So is there anything that people can do on their own to like work on their own emotional intelligence within themselves?
Absolutely. So it starts with self-awareness, right? That's the first skill set. You can't change anything that you're not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think um, there's a few things that you can learn about yourself, especially with your emotions. So if let's talk about communication first. Figure out what your communication style is. Figure out what your emotions look like. How do
Mm-hmm.
they present themselves? When you are experiencing a certain emotion, especially a negative one, what is it that you need in that moment? Do you need time to process it? Do you need just to be by yourself? Do you need to think out loud? Do you need to vent? And once
Mm-hmm.
you understand this, communicate that to your partner. Hey, when I'm upset, I just need you to give me 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
or I just need you to listen to me when I vent. Right. So paying attention to how your emotions show up so that you can communicate that to your partner. Also think about how your emotions show up and how they may affect the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you are stressed out, you may not mean it, but you may be projecting your energy, your emotions on other people. It may not be in the same way, right? But that is the thing, right? You've ever been around somebody and you like their energy is just off, like
Off.
you don't want to be around them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so start to be mindful about how you are impacting other people, how you are influencing when you walk in a room or when you're around. Do people have a certain idea of you, or, she always got an attitude, right? So start to pay attention to your emotions. One, so that you know what you need and you can articulate that need to your partner and it can be met. But two, also so that you can be mindful of how your emotions show up, not just for your partner. Another big one is how it shows up with your kids,
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, I think that's important. And a lot of people probably don't even recognize it.
right? The lack of patience, being anxious, sometimes the way you discipline them. It has nothing to do with the child. It's everything about you were already stressed out and the child did one little thing and that just sent you over the edge, right?
Mm,
But again, a lack of not being able to control your emotions, it affects the people around you,
yeah.
right? So pay attention to those things too. Um, I think the other things that you should pay attention to, how do you feel about yourself? Like one question I like to ask people is, are you happy? And you'd be surprised how quiet people get if they are truly being honest. Are you happy? And be on, even if you're not, that's okay, right? I told you my mental health check-in today is a 3.5. I probably could have said a 3,
Yeah.
right? Be honest with yourself, because then you have to figure out why. What is making you unhappy? What is making you unhappy? And then you have to go back and say, what will make you happy? And how do you get that? Right. And so that is actually an exercise I do with my clients, because that's what I had to do when I was in my moments, right? I wrote down everything that was bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I wasn't making enough money. Right. I was lonely. And so I was lonely. What would make me not lonely? Companionship. And for me at the time, it wasn't necessarily just romantic. I also didn't have any friends. Right. I was new to the area.
Right.
So I just needed companionship. And so what did I do? I joined a group at church. I joined a wine club. Right. So you have to really think about what it is that is making you upset, even if you feel lost. Right. Maybe you're not unhappy, but you just feel lost. You
Mm-hmm.
feel like you are stuck in this situation. That's another thing that I hear a lot. Like, I just don't know what I should be doing. Right. I know that there's maybe more inside of me, or I just been at this job for so long, or I just been at this, like I'm in a routine. Right. I wake up, get my kids together, kiss my husband, kiss my boyfriend, go to work, come home, cook dinner, and we start all over tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's just you just on autopilot at this point and you just want something new. It works for that as well, right? Really sit down and think about the things that you do not like about your life and be honest. And what
Yeah.
would make you really like it? And so I think once you do that check in with yourself, then you can start to plan on ways to improve it.
Mm. The one key, you said a lot of good stuff, but the one key takeaway that I took away from all this is everything revolves around you. Like it is solely an internal job. And it's not like you trying to change other people, trying to make people what you think they should be or want them to be, but it's like the recreation of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people sometimes miss the mark when they're doing like on the healing journey, doing the healing work to
Mm-hmm.
really understand why it's important to have that healthy relationship with yourself and how having a healthy relationship with yourself can create a healthy foundation in any relationship that you're in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think, right, when you're talking about foundation, so how does this actually help you, right? Besides the communication, right? That's kind of easy. When you are emotionally intelligent, right? When you are self-aware, let's just talk about the self-awareness because that's the part that, you specifically asked about. When you are self-aware, you know what you want and need in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You are also aware of your areas of growth. Um, And I feel like when you're self-aware, that's when you don't settle,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I said, relationships are optional.
Right.
Anybody you allow to be in your life should be a positive addition. And so the more self-aware you are, the more you fall in love with yourself, the less BS, I don't know if I can cuss, the less
No,
BS
yeah.
you are going to, right, put up with. I
Yeah.
talk to women. And, another question I ask is, do you love yourself? And they'll say yes, but you can't based on this romantic relationship that you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's no way possible that you love yourself and you are settling for this.
Mm-hmm.
The two, they don't go together. You can't possibly love yourself if you are going, if you are going to stay in a relationship that is not for you, right? And so when I'm talking to single women and I, have this conversation with them, it's like you date at your level of your self-esteem,
Oh, okay.
right? And so when women come and say men this and men that, but it's partly about who you attract, but you also got to look at who you choose, because I'm
Right.
sure there are some people that you did not give your number to. There are some people that you were not interested in. So it's not all about who you attract. You
Mm-hmm.
got to be honest and say that you are sometimes picking these people. Again, be totally honest with yourself. Like my number one rule is always keep it funky with yourself. Never lie to yourself. You can lie to anybody else, just don't lie to yourself and God and your
Yeah.
lawyer if you need one of them. But like just never lie to yourself, because if you can be honest with yourself and say, okay, this is why I chose this person. There is something that they do for you. There is something that they make you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it may be feeding an insecurity. It may be feeling the idea of fantasy that you have in your head,
Mm-hmm.
right? It may be you are trying to push your own agenda and your own timeline. And so I'm going to go with this. And so if you are able to answer that question, how did I get here? Or what is it that this person does for me? Right? You can figure out healthier ways to do that. And so when you have a good foundation, again, you know how to set boundaries for yourself.
But some people don't. So a person that doesn't know how to set boundaries or see red flags, what is that? How is that person supposed to navigate those waters? And I'm not making excuses
Mm-hmm.
for people, but some people are just open,
Mm-hmm.
right? Can I give you an example?
Absolutely.
The Risa Tisa
Mm-hmm.
situation that was
Mm-hmm.
going on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
She was very open, but she also admitted that she had low self-esteem, and all the red flags, she missed them. And some things she knew it was a red flag, but she wanted it to be her turn so bad. So she overlooked them. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
have any boundaries and a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yep.
So a person like that, like, how do you navigate those waters?
She didn't want to. She, like you said, like you said, I didn't watch the whole thing because it got on my nerves. Because I started to ask those questions like, did
Mm-hmm.
you listen? Like you specifically said no, and then you went and said yes, right? And so in those moments, there's nothing that you can do if the person doesn't want help.
Right.
Right. I only work with people if they want to change. And so she, like I said, she was committed to her agenda in her head. And so she wasn't after a healthy relationship. She wanted a ring. She wanted to be married. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a difference between wanting to be married and wanting a healthy marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We can, if we really wanted to just get married, we probably could.
Mm-hmm.
But is it going to be healthy? Right.
Right.
That is the standard, right? I know we sometimes are, oh, I'm this age, and I'm not married yet. It's okay, sis. Right.
Yeah.
This may be your season to grow, right? It may be a reason that you are still single. It may be something that you need to learn. There may be some tendencies or insecurities or whatever that you need to heal from. And so in that situation, she didn't want to see them. She saw them. They were there. She was
Mm-hmm.
lying to herself. And what's rule number one? Never lie to yourself.
Right. Right.
Right. And that's why she kept it a secret. And it's not just her, it happens, right? You keep it a secret. You feel bad. You are ashamed of it. You know that means you know that something is not right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, for the few episodes that I did watch, right, that was the question that I asked. She knew, but what was it that kept her there? Like that would be the questions that I would be asking her. I didn't care all the stuff that he did. I think it came out like his mental health history came out afterwards. Like, but all of the stuff that he did, I want to know why you stayed. And that is the part that we need to work through.
Right.
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 And so when people don't see the red flags, now let's say you truly do not see them, because I had those conversations too, where after the fact they can connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think again, people just don't necessarily think about what a healthy relationship looks like for them. They don't know what that looks like. Society talks about what relationships should look like. He should be doing this. He should pay for everything, fly you out. You got to figure out what's healthy for you,
Right.
what works for you and your partner. And until you know that standard, you just gonna be out here.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, leave the whole social media facade alone, and like you make that determination. And I think that's a big part of the problem now a lot of people deal with is you see a lot of things on social media and you want those things, but those things might not necessarily be realistic for you, or you don't even know what that person took to get to that point, or what's going on behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think it's good to just, kind of be in your own little bubble and determine those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you've been in doing this type of work and like focusing on emotional intelligence and things. What are some challenges that you see with like your coaching clients that are trying to navigate on their healing journey? Because ultimately it would be for some healing journey or self-discovery.
So, in coaching, what we do, and so there's a difference between coaching and therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy, when you go to therapy, you are trying to figure out how you got to the moment where you are right now. You know, what happened in your past, your childhood, your upbringing, your experiences. How does that indicate where you are or dictate where you are right now, the way you think, the way you behave, all of that? Coaching, on the other hand, is forward looking.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, we're going to be honest. This is where we are. There is no judgment. I don't care if you went back 15 times. This is where you are. What we're going to figure out in coaching, where do you want to go from here and how do we get you there?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think the biggest challenges, because I work with both women that are single and in relationships. So let me think about some of the challenges that I see, some commonalities. I think it's a lack of self-awareness is definitely one of them. Like I will ask questions. and they don't know, right? If I'm talking to like a single woman, how do you want to feel in your relationship? Or, what would make you a good wife? How can your partner support you? If you think about your goals, your 5 and 10-year goals, how does your partner fit into that? Right? And so when you don't know the answers to these questions, you don't know what you're looking for. Right? You can't just be nearsighted and say, oh, you want somebody to lay next to right now. Right? I believe that everybody has a purpose, everybody has a vision for their life. Like, you got to know where you're headed so that you are picking somebody that also works for your future, not your right now. Right? I understand the vision that I have, the purpose that I have. Everybody can't go with me.
Right.
And I think that has probably been the biggest. Once I learned my purpose, I think dating got a lot easier for me.
How so?
Because once I understood, for whatever reason, where God is taking me, or at least where I think he's taking me, I understand that everybody can't go with me. Right? It's going to take a certain person to be able to support me in that space, to be able to even understand that space, right? I've dated people before. Like, one of the last people I dated, I also have a podcast. I do my show live. He listened to an episode, and afterwards, I called him like, oh, what did you think? You're like, I don't know. You don't know what? I don't know how I'm gonna like this. Like, and I'm not even big on social. Like, I ignore social media all the time. So like, I don't have thousands of followers. Like, that's not even me. And he's like, I just don't know how I'll feel about like people coming to you, asking you for advice. Like, I got to share you.
Interesting.
Right. And that's not the only reason that we stopped talking, right? But that let me know right now, you don't understand this. Especially because my work is not, I mean, yes, I will share about me. Like, if I can help anybody, I'm an open book. But I'm not sitting on my podcast talking about my life every day.
Right. And you're doing this to help other people.
Exactly. And so once I figured out my purpose and I understood the support I need, right? I am aware of my shortcomings. And if I can find somebody to support me in those areas, that's how they can add value to my life. Cool. If you can't go with me. Also, if you don't have a vision for your own life, we can't do this either. Like, so vision and purpose, I think, are very important. So I think one of the things that hinder people sometimes, and I'm talking about my single clients, is not knowing, right? Not looking far enough into the future as to what this looks like. What does a healthy relationship look like for you? If you woke up 5 years from now, or maybe even tomorrow, if you wake up tomorrow and everything in your life is ideal, what does it look like? What does your family look like? Where do you live? What kind of job do you have, if any? Like, what kind of car do you drive? How much money do you make? Do you travel? If everything is ideal, what does your life look like? And then the next question I ask people is, what type of partner do you need to get there? I think a lot of people are short-sighted, which can hurt you in the long run, right? That's when people tend to not ask the important questions until it's too late. That's how you end up in a relationship, a marriage, and then you find out that your partner doesn't want kids, right? You got to ask the right questions up front. And we can talk about that too. But, right, I think if you're being so short-sighted and not self-aware enough to think about down the line where you're going, you're not going to be thinking about what you need in a partner long-term. And I think some other things that I think are sometimes a hindrance, the pointing the finger, right? Not wanting to take accountability. He did this. He did. Okay, but let's talk about what you did. There's some people now. That's when I get the eye rolls and all that.
I was just about to say the eyebrows probably go up, but they be like, "Girl, no, I'm talking about them right now."
And look, I'm okay with that. You ain't gonna hurt my feelings. I'm here to ask the difficult questions, and so that's what I'm gonna do, right? And so I think when you are not willing to take accountability, we can't talk about where you're gonna go. Because if you're not taking accountability for the part you played in this, we cannot be honest about how you got here, so we know how to prevent it from happening again. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of times communication is something I work with couples. And sometimes people are not honest about, well, I don't know why we keep fighting. I don't know why we keep having the same arguments over and over again. I have no idea. I can't get through to him. And I go to talk to the other partner and I find out that you talk crazy out your mouth and think because he's a man, he's supposed to take it. Well, that's not how that works.
Right.
Right. I am a firm believer that both partners need to be happy. Both partners need the same thing in relationship. It may look different between the man and the woman, or, between each person, but we all need the same things. We all need a safe space emotionally. We all need a partner, right? Not just a husband. This needs to be a partner. I think it should be a partnership, whatever that looks like for you and your person, whatever you guys want to do together, right? Make sure you're friends as well. That's the big thing. Y'all don't even like each other out here.
Girl, you just said a word that my heart struck, because I learned that though. Like when you are in a season of being single and you're doing your reflection and growing, that was something that I learned, like, well, damn, how many of my relationships did I actually have a friendship within that? And I'm like, I will risk any fast track the next time, opposed to let me truly get to know this person and build that genuine rapport with them.
But let me tell you what we do. We get real stupid when it comes to a romantic relationship. We get real stupid. Okay. Now, if you meet a platonic friend, another girlfriend, you know how to build a friendship. You have friends. You know what you would and would not accept from a woman. Why we get stupid when it comes to a man? Right? The romantic stuff should just be an addition, but the same way you build a friendship with like a platonic friendship, you do it the same way. You may spend more time together, right? You may have more intimate moments, maybe, right? But it's the same thing in the beginning. And then the romance is a result of, or should be the result of, the friendship that you built. Because you're not going to always like the person. You're not going to always want to have sex with them. Right? The relationship is not going to last if you guys don't have that friendship or some type of bond, in addition to the romance. Right? If you don't have that, you're going to be in trouble. Right? And that is when you find that people just really cannot get along with each other. Right? They cannot look past their areas of growth. Like they're not willing to work with. Like I've talked to people. I was talking to a woman. She's getting a divorce. And I don't think I asked why, but I think as she was talking, she said, "Oh, we're both just too stubborn." You getting a divorce because you're stubborn?
Right. Don't sound right.
And so I think what we have to do is we have to really think about, do we really want a healthy relationship? And what does that look like? Right? Marriage is like, the wedding is not the end goal. Right? You should be picking somebody that you want to be around for the long haul. At least this is what, the women that I work with, they truly want a healthy relationship, something long-term, to get married, or they're already married and they, want to rekindle and, get back to the way that things were. Right? That's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about situationships or people that's, that's not right. If you truly want something that is going to be forever, right? That 90s R&B type of love.
Yes.
You have to make sure you know who you are. You have to make sure you know what you need. How can your partner add value to your life? Right? And it's not all about money. Right? It's not all about money. How can if he knocked on your door tomorrow, how can he add value to your life? How can you add value to his? Right? Because you also got to know what you have to give. Because it got to be a two-way street. And so
Yeah.
there are sometimes I meet a guy and I listen to what he, I just listening, I figure out I can't do that for you. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I can't hang out with you every weekend, all Friday, all Saturday, all that's just not the life that I live. I would love to, but that's not the life that I live. Again, going back to my
Right.
purpose.
Yeah.
It just won't allow it. Right. And so you have to be honest about the things that you can give, right? I also look for people's areas of growth pretty quickly and decide if that's something that I want to deal with. I
Mhm.
might not want to.
At least you
Right.
can be honest about that.
Absolutely. And that's why I said the whole thing is just don't lie to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoo, child. Mm-mm. I don't know how y'all feel, but I know how I feel listening to all this, you know. Um, Before we get to the last point, real quick, just to piggyback, because you brought it up and it's
Mm-hmm.
like wearing on my head. The questions that you should ask a person when you
Mm-hmm.
are dating.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like me and my friends been having these conversations comparing like the pre-COVID times compared to like now, just because things have drastically changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the dating realm. I don't like to say the dating environment is toxic and stuff because I'm in it and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not toxic, but it has definitely changed and people should definitely ask more and just be cautious about a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things. So what are some questions that people should be asking when they are dating?
Absolutely. So I'll give you some of the questions. So I actually came up with a card game. So I have two versions of the card game, the perfect partner card game. So there is a dating edition
Mm-hmm.
to help you figure out if you are compatible. So these are the questions. Now it's like 50 questions. So you don't have to ask them all at once, but I'll give you some of the questions that I feel like you should ask.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a couples version that helps you with the difficult conversations once you're already in the relationship. And so, dating edition, questions that you should ask when you are dating. So, I'll give you the questions that I feel like you should ask before the first date.
Before the first date.
Before
Got
the
it.
first date, you need to ask about what type of relationship they're open to. And what I mean by that is, are they just looking to have fun? Do they want to be married at some point? Are they looking for friends with benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if you know that you want to be married and they just want to have fun, go ahead and play in your own face if you want to.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Now, on the
Mm-hmm.
flip side, just because you both want the same type of relationship, let's say you both want marriage, that does not mean that this is your person. However, it means that you know that you're at least not wasting your time and you guys are going to take the time to see if and date and see if this is something that can work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's like one of the first questions. I think you should also ask about children.
Mm-hmm.
How many do you have? Do you want any more? Right? Is that a deal breaker for you? You might be dealing with somebody that they don't know if they want to have kids, right?
Right.
Children is like children can be a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
How many children do you already have? With how many women? Because for me, if you got more than two women, children by more than two women, I'm cool,
Yeah.
right? Again, but that's your self awareness. You got to know what you can handle. I
Mm-hmm.
talked to a client yesterday and I said, well, how many children can he have? She said, it doesn't matter. I said, does the number of women matter? She said, it doesn't matter. Like, it's okay. Right? You got to know what works for you.
More
For
power to
me,
her.
I know more than two. That's it.
Yeah.
Um,
And some of us say none.
and some say none. Right? People only want to date people that don't have kids. I know people with kids that only date people without kids. So you
Yeah.
just got to know what it is. Another question you should ask about is religion. If religion is important to you,
Mm-hmm.
think about it. And I actually had this conversation a couple of times this week. Um, and people were like, it doesn't matter. And I said, well, then let me ask you this question, right? Religion, if you ascribe to a religion, it dictates how you live your life. It dictates some of your core values, right? And so to the extent your person is of a different belief, can you guys still coexist, right? Or do your values conflict? And it may not pose a problem between you two,
Mm-hmm.
but what about when you have children? That's really when it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Because I want to raise my kid like this and you want to raise my kid like that, but I don't believe in that. Right. And so I think religion is a big thing. If you are religious or spiritual, I think
Mm-hmm.
that is something you need to ask before the first date.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only other thing I would say you should ask before the first date, any of your other deal breakers. That can be like a quick answer. So if smoking is a deal breaker for you, if
Mm-hmm.
drinking is a deal breaker for you, like those things that you can kind of check off the paper,
Mm-hmm.
like if they're going to be a deal breaker, there's no need in you going on a first date.
Right. Right. Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And like I said, things have changed because I can remember back in the day, you didn't ask most or anything before you started like seeing a person or even trying to establish are we just dating or is this the talking stage? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
a whole nother thing. But like you said, you have to have the self-awareness and really know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say give yourself grace because sometimes we really don't know what we want until we're in it and like, okay, I don't think I like the way this feels, and I have the option to move along. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, don't play in your own face.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. Hopefully that helps
Absolutely.
somebody out there, because things out here looking a little raggedy at times.
Absolutely. So here's the thing, right? I'm not into wasting my time. And so if there are things that I can ask you up front and I know they're going to be deal breakers, if you tell me you want 5 kids, you want me to have 5 kids, we're not going to do this. And that's like a deal breaker for you. I'm not your person, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to even put myself in that predicament. And that's another thing that people say, like, well, I already love him. I already love her. I get it. That's why you got to do the work beforehand. Because once your feelings isn't right, you can't, your feelings are valid. You cannot control them. You can regulate them, but you can't control them,
Mhm.
which is why situationships are dangerous, but that's a different conversation. But you
Mhm.
cannot control your emotions. And so you can learn to love anybody if you spend enough time with them.
Mm.
Okay. So you can learn to love anybody if you spend enough time with them. That's why you have to be careful about who you allow yourself the opportunity to love.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. That just hit me again. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. We ain't asked for this,
Mhm.
But no, that
I'm
that
just trying
that
to
makes
help.
no, I'm joking. That
Mhm.
makes that makes so much sense. Who you allow yourself to love. Because I always like to think of it sometimes like you can't control who you love.
Right. And so this is the thing. That's why I didn't say who you give yourself the opportunity to love.
Okay.
Once
Okay.
your feelings are in it, you love the person.
Mm-hmm.
And then now the decision is even harder to step away from them. This is why you have to back up 10 steps, right? Is this somebody that I should even have around me to give myself the opportunity to love? Like I said, you can grow to love anybody. Right? Think about it. We all know people that maybe a guy asked so many times, wore you down, and now you were talking to him because you gave
Mm-hmm.
him, he was close enough to you, or you might not have liked them originally, but the way that he shows up for you, the way that he treats you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, if you truly know that this is not your person, don't give yourself that opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're talking about accountability here. Like you allowed the person to be around.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes so much sense. Well, thank
Mm-hmm.
you for that. This conversation has been very good and insightful, and I truly hope that it gave someone a different perspective when it came to um, self-awareness within themselves, of course, and just emotional intelligence, and gave a person a beating they may have needed because it probably gave me one. So I appreciate your time and all your wisdom and insight that you offered. Um, the Perfect Partner Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that and where people can find that.
Absolutely. So my show is the Perfect Partner Podcast. It is a show for those of you who have not given up on love despite its challenges. And we have difficult but productive conversations about things that can really affect your relationship. And so I started the podcast, one, to help people understand the importance of emotional intelligence in romantic relationships. Like, there's not too many people. I actually only met one other coach, and I just met him yesterday. in all of these years, I have been looking for somebody else that works with EQ and romantic relationships because everybody does it in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, he found me, and I just met him yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And so that was part of the reason why I wanted to start the podcast. But the other reason is I don't know that there are too many spaces out there for healthy conversations about relationships. Right? Social media drives me nuts. Like I was in here
Girl.
today unfollowing pages. Like I can't take this. Right? And social
Mm-hmm.
media, if you allow it, it would have you thinking that all hope is lost, that is nothing but pee in a dating pool. Hang it up, sis. You're never going to get married. And let me tell you that it is not true. I have conversations with men and women almost every day that are healthy, that
Mm-hmm.
want healthy relationships, right? They are more so, even if you are traditionalist, a lot of them are traditional,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they are looking to settle down. They're not looking to play, right? They're just looking for somebody to do life with.
Yeah.
Right. And so I know that it's out here because I talk to the people every day. And so that's who I want to talk to. I hope that the people tune into my show, they really um, are looking for a healthy relationship. They want to help to build and maintain a healthy relationship. So some of my guests, I recorded an episode yesterday
Mm-hmm.
with a coach that helps with women that has been abused by a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
I've had therapist on my show. I've had people come and share their personal experience from going from a toxic relationship to a healthy relationship. I've talked to a matchmaker. I've talked to somebody that is the owner of a dating app and like what you should put on your dating profile, right? So we cover a range of topics. My guest on Monday, she experienced domestic violence. And so she's coming to share her experience, but also talk about how she got over it. And
Mm-hmm.
so the number one thing that's very important for me in my show is that we don't just talk. We don't talk about we talk about the issues, but there has to be actionable steps. So anybody that comes on my show, I tell them what you could talk about whatever you want to talk about, but you have to give them something. This is not, we don't gatekeep over here. This is not the
Mm-hmm.
place to say, oh, you say a sentence and everybody got a book of call. Like that's not you.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm fine with sharing your information, all of that, but you got to give my listeners something. Like we're not doing that over here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean it when I say I want to have productive conversations. I don't do the whole gender dividing thing. We are not allowed to project your experience on people, right? This is truly a place to have conversations. And like I said, so I do my show live. You can only watch it live if you are in my Facebook community. Other
Okay.
than that, you can catch the replay on all streaming platforms. So season 1 is out. I'm still working on season 2 right now, but it's on
Mm-hmm.
all streaming platforms and on YouTube. So the Perfect Partner
Okay.
podcast, you are the Perfect Partner Facebook community. If you are interested in joining the show live, and you can actually ask our guests questions while they are there. But yeah, that's why I started it.
That's amazing. So no red pill content.
Mm-mm,
Okay. No, none of that Kevin Samuels stuff.
mm-mm,
None, none of that. But you know
mm-mm.
what? I love your content. I, just in following you for the short period of time that I found it to be very insightful and positive, and it's very like it's very soft. So I receive it soft, like not like you're trying to throw something at me, or
Mm-hmm.
not like you're trying to like, hey, you need it. Like, no, hey, these things can help you, and here's why. So I appreciate you for that. Cause like you said, there's very few, if any, that like coaches that
Mm-hmm.
actually teach something.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for having and creating a safe space like you do. Okay. Um, so I like to end my show with my guests, even though we have discussed so much
Mm-hmm.
meaningful and important things, and you've offered so many words of encouragement. I like to ask guests to just end with one positive note to someone that may be listening right now and may be struggling on their path. So what is something that you can offer to them?
Just one.
Hey, you got the floor.
So I will say, I can't do just one. I'm sorry.
No, you got the
So,
floor, sis.
okay. So I will repeat some of the ones that I've said earlier, right? That relationships are optional. Anybody you allow to be in your life should be a positive addition to your life. I will also say that you have to be the priority. You have to know what is healthy for you
Mm.
and find somebody that you can coexist with. It's not about changing anybody. It's about truly taking the time to understand somebody, right? We didn't talk a lot about empathy, but it's really about taking time to understand your person and figuring out, can we coexist together? And if not, we not, right? And I think that makes the breakup or when things don't work out a lot easier because you realize that, okay, this is just not the person I can coexist with.
Mhm.
And it's not about forcing anything. You let that person be that person, you be you, and you figure out, can you live together?
Yeah.
And I'll stop there.
Wonderful. And if you guys need some more assistance in any of those areas, please by all means reach out to Miss Erin. I will have all of her information listed in the description below so you guys can go tap in with her. And can you please tell everyone? I know you mentioned the podcast, but like all of the social media platforms where people can follow you at.
Yep. So on Facebook, my name, so Erin Darden. I have the Perfect Partner Facebook community. And then you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. It's just my name, Erin F. Darden. And I tell people, follow me. I give a lot of communication tips. And then tips is really about self-awareness, right? This is what I really want to help people with. Come find me now, because if I figure out how to talk to people off of social media, I'm out of here. Right? If the minute I can figure out a safe space where I know people are going to show up,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, because I feel like there's too much noise on social media, and that's not what we need. So come follow me now while I'm still here. I almost deleted everything today, but I just unfollowed a few pages instead. So come on and follow me. If you guys have any ideas about how we can commune outside of social media, please let me know. I have been asking my team. I got my team thinking, like, listen, but anyhow, yes, go ahead and find me. If you have any questions about emotional intelligence, if you have questions about whether or not I can help you with your situation, please reach out to me, right? Like I said, a lot of the stuff I do is conflict resolution and communication. If you're already in a relationship, and if you are single, right, it's about trying to figure out what may you be doing to hinder you from the love that you want, right? There may be some things that you are not aware of that you're doing that is stopping you from having this relationship that you want, and then giving you the tools to build and maintain this relationship that you say that you want. So if that's something that you feel like you want help with, or you want to even ask me more questions, let me know. I'm here. I'm truly here to help people. This is what I'm passionate about, right? I'm very passionate about emotional intelligence and helping people build and maintain healthy romantic relationships.
Hey, so y'all heard it here, folks. So please go tap in with her. All of her links will be listed below. So you guys can go follow her, subscribe to her podcast, and all the amazing things. If you got some ideas on how to get her off of social media, please send them her way because she is open to them. I think we all get to that point because I'm with you. I always say if I didn't have this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't probably be on social media anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, never know what can happen. But
This is
again, thank you so much for this insightful conversation and for all of your energy and for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, even though I'm not a Virgo, but I appreciate it.
It's okay. It's okay. No problem.